My name is Claire Turner, and I will be reading from Charles Dickens Bleak House. The scene I will be reading begins in chapter 47. In this scene, Alan Woodcourt treats Joe to breakfast and searches to help him find a place to stay. The scene is important because it shows that Woodcourt cares for Joe, but it also shows that Joe is rather insignificant to society. As Alan Woodcourt and Joe proceed along the streets, where the high church spires and the distances are so near and clear in the morning that the city itself seems renewed by rest, Alan revolves in his mind how and where he shall bestow his companion. It surely is a strange fact, he considers, that in the heart of a civilized world, this creature in human form should be more difficult to dispose of than an unknown dog, but it is nonetheless a fact because of its strangeness, and the difficulty remains. At first he looks behind him often, to assure himself that Joe is still really following. But look where he will, he still beholds him close to the opposite houses, making his way with his wary hand from brick to brick, and from door to door, and often as he creeps along glancing over at him watchfully. Soon satisfied that the last thing in his thoughts is to give him the slip, Alan goes on, considering with a less divided attention what he shall do. A breakfast stall at a street corner suggests the first thing to be done. He stops there, looks round, and beckons Joe. Joe crosses and comes halting and shuffling up, slowly scooping the knuckles of his left hand round and round the hollowed palm of his right, kneading the dirt with a natural pestle and mortar. What is a dainty repast to Joe is then set before him, and he begins to gulp the coffee and to gnaw on the bread and butter, looking anxiously about him in all directions as he eats and drinks like a scared animal. But he is so sick and miserable that even hunger has abandoned him. "I thought I was almost a starvin', sir," says Joe, soon putting down his food, "but I don't know nothing. Not even that, and I don't care for eating wittles, yet nor for drinking on 'em." And Joe stands shivering and looking at the breakfast wonderingly. Alan Woodcourt lays his hand upon his pulse and on his chest. "Draw a breath, Joe." "It draws," says Joe. "It's heavy as a cot," he might add, "and rattles like it." But he only mutters, "I'm a-moving on, sir." Alan looks about for an apothecary shop. There is none at hand, but a tavern does as well or better. He obtains a little measure of wine and gives the lad a portion of it very carefully. He begins to revive almost as soon as it passes his lips. "We might repeat that dose, Joe," observes Alan, after watching him with his attentive face. "So, now we will take 5 minutes rest, and then go on again." Leaving the boy sitting on the bench at the breakfast stall with his back against an iron railing, Alan Woodcourt paces up and down in the early sunshine, casting an occasional look towards him, without appearing to watch him. It requires no discernment to perceive that he is warmed and refreshed. If a face so shaded can brighten, his face brightens somewhat, and by little and little he eats the slice of bread he had so hopelessly laid down. Observant of these signs of improvement, Alan engages him in conversation, and elicits, to his no small wonder, the adventures of the lady in the veil, with all its consequences. Joe slowly munches as he slowly tells it. When he has finished his story and his bread, they go on again, intending to refer his difficulty in finding a temporary place of refuge for the boy to his old patient, zealous little Miss Flit. Alan leads the way to the court where he and Joe first foregathered. But all is changed at the rag and bottle shop. Miss Flit no longer lodges there. It is shut up, and a hard-featured female, much obscured by the dust, whose age is a problem, but who is indeed no other than the interesting Judy, is tart and spare in her replies. These sufficing, however, to inform the visitor that Miss Flit and her birds are domiciled with the Mrs. Blunder in Bellyard. He repairs to that neighboring place where Miss Flit, who rises early that she may be punctual at the division of justice held by her excellent friend the Chancellor, comes running downstairs with tears of welcome and with open arms. "My dear physician!" cries Miss Flit. "My meritorious, distinguished, honorable officer!" She uses some odd expressions, but as cordial and full of heart as sanity itself can be, more so often than is. Alan, very patient with her, waits until she has no more raptures to express, then points out Joe, trembling in a doorway, and tells her how he comes there. "Where can I lodge him hereabouts for the present? Now you have a fund of knowledge and a good sense, and can advise me." Miss Flit, mighty proud of the compliment, sets herself to consider, but it is long before a bright thought occurs to her. Mrs. Blinder is currently let, and she herself occupies poor Gridley's room. "Gridley!" exclaims Miss Flit, clapping her hands after a 20th repetition of this remark. "Gridley, to be sure, of course, my dear physician. General George will help us out."